Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Dear Esther. I have some bad news in that I recorded a follow-up episode to the first episode I made, but then I lost all the audio after finishing my recording session. And Dear Esther has a strange, well, very simplistic save system in that it's only a quick save, quick load save system. So subsequently I'd quick saved at the end of my previous session, not knowing I had lost the audio. Then when I found out I'd lost the audio that I'd recorded, I was kind of screwed, because I'd already saved well beyond what I'd played through. And Dear Esther generates a new story each time you play it. The dialogue is different, so I can't play up to the same point I was at to resume the same story I was doing. So what I propose is this. I'm going to start a new game of Dear Esther, quickly run through to where I was up to, and I'm only going to edit together little bits of dialogue that pop up, and then I will continue on from there. And hopefully that will satisfy everyone, and I should be able to continue on from there to complete Dear Esther. Hopefully. I'll be really pissed off if I screw up when I'm much further into the game and I can't do this again easily. So it could be an abandoned project if I don't get this to work right. But hopefully that's what will happen, and we'll start again. I'll let you enjoy some mysterious dialogue, and we'll see what this new story does for us, where it takes us. Okay? Let's go.
Dear Esther, the gulls do not land here anymore. I've noticed that this year they seem to shun the place. Maybe it's the depletion of the fishing stock driving them away. Perhaps it's me. When he first landed here, Donnelly wrote that the herds were sickly, and their shepherds the lowest of the miserable classes that populate these Hebridean islands. 300 years later, even they have departed. At night, you can see the lights sometimes from a passing tanker or trawler. From up on the cliffs, they are mundane. But down here, they fugue into ambiguity. For instance, I cannot readily tell if they belong above or below the waves. The distinction now seems banal. Why not everything and all at once? There's nothing better to do here than indulge in contradictions whilst waiting for the fabric of life to unravel. Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under. Donnelly reported the legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side, and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude. Donnelly's book had not been taken out from the library since 1974. I decided it would never be missed as I slipped it under my coat and avoided the librarian's gaze on the way out. If the subject matter is obscure, the writer's literary style is even more so. It is not the text of a stable or trustworthy reporter. Perhaps it is fitting that my only companion in these last days should be a stolen book written by a dying man. When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boat, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh. I quote directly, a motley lot with little to recommend them. I have now spent 3 days in their company. That is, I fear, enough for any man not born amongst them. Despite their tedious inclination to quote scripture, they seem to me the most God-forsaken of all the inhabitants of the Outer Isles. Indeed, in this case, the very gravity of that term, forsaken by God, seems to find its very apex. It appears to me that Donnelly, too, found those who wander this shoreline to be adrift from any chance of redemption. Did he include himself in that, I wonder?
All right, back to the point where I stopped last time. Well, sort of. I'm just up the hill from the ship. There are some similar aspects there. I noticed there were a couple of passages that had been played in my my first playthrough, and I've certainly heard about Donnelly. It seems to me that the way Dear Esther constructs the story is by sort of picking a passage that sort of fits within a larger picture and playing it at certain points while you're exploring. Though it is focused more, this one is more focused on the character of Donnelly, whereas the last, I think, made mention of a car crash, though Donnelly started cropping up when I moved out in that direction, which is where I'm going to go now. Unfortunately, the impact of what I'm going to be exploring is somewhat lessened because I've already seen it, but hopefully the little bits of dialogue will provide me some interesting commentary material. And I thought about going on the separate path down here into the cave by the ship, but I think it's better for me to continue on the way I was going, so I can get a better handle on the story. The new telling of the story that I've embarked on here, and hopefully I don't lose any more footage, any more audio or footage. So we have the ship in that cave. Actually, no, I don't think you can go into that cave. I tried swimming out there, but I couldn't make it. Though I'm going to have another look.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
Alright, so getting the creepy breath sound from the cave. Oh, actually no, there is a path down there, but I'm not going to go down there. Though I did link up with the cave system. I'm not sure, because I don't want to progress in one direction. I
threw my arms wide and the cliff opened out before me, making this rough home. I transferred my belongings from the bothy on the mount and tried to live here instead. It was cold at night, and the sea lapped at the entrance at high tide. To climb the peak, I must first venture even deeper into the veins of the island, where the signals are blocked altogether. Only then will I understand them, when I stand on the summit and they flow into me, uncorrupted.
Right, so I'm going to have a look at the front of this cave. If I can see the back of the cave, I will go and look at it. Actually, that might just be a dead end, so I'm going to go and look at this. I haven't looked at this bit before, which is quite cool. Oh no, it does sort of... Oh, maybe it doesn't. So we've got more of this interesting lumescent... Is that the right term? Lumescent? Lumescent fish? I don't know. Brain has died on me suddenly. More chemical symbols and interesting sausage paintings. Okay, so this is a dead end. This is good that I've actually explored down here, since I didn't do this last time, and I would have missed this entirely. Alright, so here we have the guy's clothes, and some fish, and really mouldy bread from when he tried to live here. That's kinda cool. And he loves painting trees and sausages and chemical equation symbol things on the walls. That's cool, that's new, but we're going to move on now. What the fuck was that? Real paranoid that something was going to come up behind me, but I'm still unsure of the nature of this game. If it's mystery or if there is some element of horror. And we're back to the piano music. That's cool. We're going to go upstream now. A very pretty stream, if I may say so. It's a very aesthetically pleasing game. It is sort of a very chillaxed kind of game. It's not about well, there's some tension, but not a lot. And it's all about stopping and looking and hearing and appreciating the environment rather than rushing through it and, I don't know, rushing through it towards an objective, which is a nice change of pace.
I've become convinced I am not alone here, even though I'm equally sure it is simply a delusion brought upon by circumstance. I do not, for instance, remember where I found the candles, or why I took it upon myself to light such a strange pathway. Perhaps it is only for those who are bound to follow.
Candles? I have not seen any candles. So we've got some interesting standing stones here, with more symbols, and a book on chemistry. Once again, I'm useless at chemistry, so if you know these symbols and you think that they might have significance, please leave it in the comments below. I tried climbing up there. This was on the previous story. It was focused on the car crash and the road, and I thought I might be able to reach a road up there, but you can't. So I'm going to keep going. And of course, this is above that gully where the wreckage of the car can be seen. So I'll have a look over here and show you where the wreckage is, and hopefully I don't fall down, because that would be really, really shit having to climb all the way back up here. So you can't really see it. I mean, you can kind of see there, sort of just above the lip of that crevice, sort of right in the center of the screen, there's the axle and the wheel. You can't see the door because it's underneath that lip. I can't remember if there was a tire. Oh, there's another door right in the center of the screen, though it's very difficult to see amongst the rocks. So that's cool. There is still wreckage here. It's interesting because the environment doesn't change, but the focus of the story does, and it's interesting to see how they sort of knit this together. But the Donnelly story doesn't seem too bad. So I'm going to head up towards that tower, communications tower of some kind, I think. Some sort of radio tower, I believe. Nice little canyon. And point of no return. Off we go.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services. But although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
It's because you can't drive to an island, mate. I like this. This is a ship graveyard sort of thing. Though it poses an interesting problem, which I'll walk along and talk about when I get into a better view. So this is a new chapter. It's interesting that you can just start at whatever chapter and wander around, though I don't know how you'd get back up there. I guess you'd have to go through the caves, which is probably where I'm going to wind up at the end of this session, because it's where I wound up last time. So there's one ship. I thought there was another ship. Maybe I was mistaken, or maybe I can see it from further around. Unfortunately, you can't get on the ship and explore it. I did have a look at that. So there's not really much on the other side. Actually, no, there is something I will show you on the other side. More symbol type stuff. I want to try and... My objective has been trying to get out to that radio tower. So I'll just keep moving in that direction.
An imagined answer phone message. The tyres are flat, the wheel spins loosely, and the brake fluid has run like ink over this map, staining the landmarks and rendering the coastline mute, compromised. Where you saw galaxies, I saw only bruises cut into the cliff by my lack of sobriety.
So there is a car crash involved. Okay, I've not been able to read this very well, and I'm zoomed in. Right, back to it. God damn it, I keep getting interrupted every time I've recorded Dear Esther. I've always been interrupted, so it's super annoying. And I can't... That was a huge long interruption, and now I can't remember what I was talking about. God damn it! Pisses me off so much. Right, calm down, back to it. I think I was trying to read that. Something, neither did he eat nor drink, I think that's what it says. Anyway, that's somewhat interesting. But the point I came down here to make was that it must have been a pretty fucking huge storm to get that ship to be lodged up there. Oh, that was the other boat I was thinking of. It was just a small one. And obviously they've ignored the warnings from the little marker out there. But yeah, the waves would have had to have like smashed it right over these rocks. I mean, you can kind of see that that rock has caused that hole probably, but it's wedged right in there good, and it would have been a hell of a storm to get it there. Right, now that that's dealt with, we can go and have a look at the weird little symbols on the other side of the beach over there, and then we can move on. I think the atmosphere of this game sort of lends itself more to a sort of Victorian era, but then there's all this stuff about cars, and this is clearly a relatively modern ship, which sort of breaks that? I don't know. I just feel like it should be sort of sitting in Victorian era. And it was the same with scratches, though that was I don't know when that was supposed to be set. But it was modern. You had a car, and of course the follow-up, I forget what it was called, the return to the Scratches Manor director's cut bit. That was clearly more modern in terms of the car that the guy used to get there. But yeah, I think it was just a Victorian house, so it sort of lent itself to that kind of atmosphere. And I think Dear Esther sort of does the same thing.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
I don't know. Tends to be that holes in the bottom of boats cause this kind of shit. Boats on the rocks. Unless you clarify it and say glass-bottomed boat, which is, I think, the sort of thing they're trying to get at. Anyway, it was this weird little trail here. Not a chemical symbol this time, but some kind of arrow pointing up there. But you can't get up there, so we have to go back around this way. All these bloody hermits. There's supposed to be thousands of them on this island, it sounds like, but I haven't seen anybody. Maybe they're all dead. It's still kind of weird. I'm not sure if I'm playing the guy who's narrating, or if I'm following in his footsteps.
I had kidney stones, and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
Right. So it's very clear that this is the same story. It's just that it's told in a different order. And I guess my point in replaying the first section is so that we don't get any repeats of dialogue that would have been there in the first section. I hope that makes sense, because I've definitely heard that passage before when coming up to this section, though it could just be a case of certain sections have definite passages linked to them. But this hole is interesting that I'm coming up to.
When I first looked into the shaft, I swear I felt the stones in my stomach shift in recognition.
And of course, you can't drop a massive hole in front of a gamer and not expect him to try it and jump in.
Come back.
Though of course we just get that result. So right, we're going to be heading up to the bothy now, which was mentioned in one of the dialogue pieces a little bit further back. I don't know why he would have moved from this perfectly comfortable bothy up here, the house, into the cave where I explored before, but apparently that's what he did.
I've begun my ascent on the green slope of the western side. I've looked deep into the mountain from the shaft, and understood that I must go up and then find the way under. I will stash the last vestiges of my civilization in the stone walls and work deeper from there. I'm drawn by the aerial and the cliff edge. There is some form of rebirth waiting for me there.
Creepy. Yes, let's have a look in here. I remember there was something interesting in here. Oh yeah, it was the syringe. A bunch of syringes. I think that's supposed to be for morphine. I like the music. It's chillaxed and atmospheric at the same time. And now I'm walking on a log, yay!
the bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either.
How sad. Someone had a fire. What was that? Some kind of notice that I can't read. And nothing else. So we'll go have a look in the bothy. And then it's on to the caves. We've got more of these strange symbols. Man, they hold a hell of a lot of fluorescent paint out here.
When the oil lamps ran out, I didn't pick up a torch, but used the moonlight to read by. When I've pulled the last shreds of sense from it, I will throw Donnelly's book from the cliffs, and perhaps myself with it. Maybe it will wash back up through the caves and erupt from the spring when the rain comes, making its return to the hermit's cave. Perhaps it will be back on the table when I wake. I think I may have thrown it into the sea several times before.
Some kind of... I've seen that painting before. Or that illustration. I can't remember when. Or where. I mean, it's sort of reminiscent of Greek vase painting art stuff. But I don't think it is. It's a photo of a thing. That's an ultrasound photo, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. Are they coconuts or eggs? Eggshells. You want to be getting coconuts on an island somewhere off the coast of England. And lots of really thick books. And a scribbled note folded up into a half-assed attempt at origami. And it's really sort of sleeping rough. Holy shit. Did that fly out of the house? The bird was following me through the house. Right. So I want to kind of get over there. I didn't make it over there last time, but I have gone down into the crevice down here. You can't jump or you die, and that's just unproductive. So I'm going to have to take the long path. So yeah, that's the cave that I wound up at last time, and I'll probably finish it down there, finish this session, and we'll start the caves next time.
Jakobsen's ribcage, they told Donnelly, was deformed, the result of some birth defect or perhaps a traumatic injury as a child. Brittle and overblown it was, and desperately light. Perhaps it was this that finally did for him, unable to contain the shattering of his heart. In half-light, his skeleton a discarded prop, a false and calcified seabird.
How interesting. So
They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. His fingernails were raw and bitten to the quick. They found the phosphorescent moss that grows in the caves deep under the nails. Whatever he'd been doing under the island when his strength began to fail is lost. He'd struggled halfway up the cliff again, perhaps in a delirium, perhaps trying to reach the bothy's fire before curling into a stone and expiring.
What's in the caves? That's the big mystery for me. And I'm slightly delayed in producing this, unfortunately. It's been about... Though I did leave it for about 2 months before coming back to this series. Just so I sort of forgot about what happened. Because that's the most annoying thing with playing a blind Let's Play and accidentally... Well, not necessarily accidentally, just losing a session and having to go back and re-record it is sort of a downer on the whole purpose of doing a blind Let's Play. But I think I've captured that by leaving it a little bit. And the mystery's still there with the cave. So I'm quite keen to get on and explore that, but that will be next session.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
So that's all the morphine syringes that are up around the bothy. That's pretty brutal, depending on what point he slipped and fell. And it'll be pretty difficult to get back up. And there's one last thing to look at down here before I wrap up today. Oh, that's different. Huh. That is new. Last time I came down here, it was a huge stack of books. But this time we have a suitcase that's busted open. That's kind of cool. Right, so that was something new for me, and something new for everyone else, I suspect. And I think I will be calling it quits here. I'm just going to wander back to the cave before I save. But I hope you've enjoyed this session. I mean, it's been a little bit more sort of less shocking, not necessarily awe, but less sort of initial intrigue from doing this blind. But the story is progressing in a relatively similar manner to my original session, which is good. They'll probably have still included the new dialogue from the beginning. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to venture into the cave next time, which should be an interesting experience. Things are certainly heating up in Dear Esther, though I'm still pondering over the fate of this guy who's narrating this adventure. But I guess I'll find out soon enough, and so will you. So until next time, have yourselves a good one, and I will catch you later.